This is Tyler, your antisocial critic and the host of the AntiSocial Network, your number one source for anachronistic conversations online. Come join us each week to hear opinions from some of the best voices discussing entertainment, politics, religion, and modern life on the internet today, most of which you've never heard of, but I have. This week on the AntiSocial Network, we're joined by Andrea with the Bangs. She is a graduate from Ambrose University with degrees in Christian Studies and Christian History, and she hosts She Wonders Why podcast and is a regular contributor over at the Paul Vanderklay community. How's it going?
Hi, you knew all the things.
Well, yeah, I have to do at least a little research because it's like I was joking with you when I introduced myself. If I don't do research, I end up with what I did with Kyle Mann, and we just end up rambling about board games for 10 minutes, and it's.
Oh, but like that's not bad. That's just look, they're real people, but maybe.
It didn't work that time, though. I mean, okay. you don't. When you have the chance to interview one of the Babylon Bee guys, you don't waste it talking about board games.
Okay.
This is why this is my universal standard bearer for a bad podcast, and why I don't want to repeat that. But anyway,
okay.
You have a rather extensive backlog of a channel, and you cover a lot of topics. But you kind of, when we were talking on the Discord, you kind of described your channel as focusing primarily on meaning crisis and purpose. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of explain what that is and how you've come into that?
Okay, so. I started off, we'll do a good old-fashioned origin story. I think that'll be good for the audience. Okay, so I got into this whole thing because I did a little Jordan Peterson video because of all the stuff that's going on about him and his new book and the people crying at the publishing house over finding out that they're going to be publishing his book. And I did a little blurb about this, so I have mentioned this like really recently, but I'll just, I'm sure everyone has seen it, so I'll just be repeating it for all of you. But no, it really is because of he was the catalyst. Like Jordan Peterson was the catalyst of me kind of getting into this world, this online world, this world of understanding our place in the world, you could say. And I just started off listening to him. And then when this stuff happened at Evergreen State College with Brett Weinstein, and we heard about, and the Wilfrid Laurier thing with Lindsay Shepard, and Peterson speaking at this one particular university, at Queen's University in Canada, I can't remember. Anyway, so all these different freedom of speech things were coming up, and I was concerned, as many people were, about the state of freedom of speech, particularly in certain college campuses. And again, Bill C-16, that was the sort of jumping off point for Peterson to be a little bit more notable than he was. And so I started off like, okay, I don't have to worry about losing a job because I'm a stay-at-home mom. So mind you, I have come to see over the past like 2.5, 3-ish years that I've done this podcast / YouTube channel. Not all of the jobs are threatened. Like, it's certain jobs. It's particularly on the coasts, in particular liberal spaces. I'm left of center, so I'm not against liberals, but particularly extra liberally spaces where you can get mobbed and lose your job. Professors, I do know a number of professors. It doesn't matter where, like, that are alt accounts, or not alt accounts, have secret names and whatever on Twitter. So I know that there's certain particular genres of jobs that you have to be careful with. I wasn't realizing that at the time. So I'm like, I will be the voice of the everyman, the every woman, if you will. And so that's why I got into this, because I just wanted to be someone who wasn't afraid to interview whoever to get their voice heard. That said, I started wanting to focus on the IDW, which they were calling themselves the group of intellectuals who were really focusing on these particular issues. Although they've kind of even then, Peterson was the one. Peterson and I guess Ben Shapiro were on one end, and then the rest were on an atheist end, but they were united in the freedom of speech cause. And but then Peterson went away, which is understandable because of his personal difficulties with his wife, and then the situation with him being on the particular those prescription drugs that were not good for him for coming off of. So I don't blame him for leaving, but him leaving really kind of changed up the dynamics of that group. And so I just sort of, it wasn't even on purpose, I just started focusing more on like, what is the IDW was the start of it, and defining like, how do we participate in it? Can we participate in it? Is it these people? And then I started saying, okay, well, what are these issues that the IDW, sorry, I guess I should say intellectual dark web, but I imagine people know that if you're watching.
I'm sure if they're listening to you, they know what that is.
Yeah, probably, yeah. But just in case, for all the new fans that I'm sure will be pouring in. So, anywho, so I was just like, okay, oh no, here come the likes. Okay, Andrea, come on. Like the likes for the record.
I have fans. That's news.
Yeah. I lost my place. What?
I have fans. That's news to me. But
yeah, yay.
You were saying you were moving on when
I meant my dude. No, I meant my likes. I was like the Valley Girl like not the likes. But likes are great. That was one of the best misunderstandings, because they kind of could both work, because I was talking about fans. Oh, I digress, because I lost my spot, and so now we're on a tangent.
No, you were saying that you were moving on from the IDW stuff.
Okay, yes. So I was thinking, okay, so what are the issues that people who are joining up with this crew, the audience, what are they attracted to this group of people for? And I think it was more than freedom of speech. People were attracted to Peterson more specifically as a way to order their lives, as a way to see the world, and the others as well in different ways. And so, okay, so that kind of leads us, okay, so what are we dealing with? What issues in life in this current context are we dealing with? Where are we going with regards to finding our purpose, our meaning? Where do we go towards? The conflicts, it's to do with different values, and we don't have a meta narrative to be an umbrella for us to all be moving towards. And so it's like, oh, is it globalism? Is it nationalism? Both of those things have extremes that people, on the other side point out are bad. Like, oh, well, what about religion? Oh, no, that's an antiquated thing of the past, So no, these people are looking, they put away the answers, but they're still like, but we're still trying to go somewhere. We're still looking. And so the question still remains, and that's what I've been trying to answer. Oh, that was really good.
That was a good summary. So, but let's backtrack a little bit. You said you were kind of a left of center Christian. Where did this philosophically come for you then? Where did, because I mean, and naturally, anytime someone kind of winds up in the space that you are right now, people kind of assume you're like the alt-righty, like I hate liberals, I'm going to do horrible things online and call everyone horrible names, and just people assume things based on what you're fighting.
Tiki torches.
Yeah, exactly. People assume you're part of the tiki right. What is your affirmative philosophy, and how did you kind of come to that in different regards?
Okay, so. Well, I mean, first of all, I'm Canadian, so that makes me a little bit less conservative than most Americans anyway, because I'm happy for the universal health care. So I'm like, yeah, Bernie Sanders. In that, and I mean, honestly, it's not feasible, but I love the concept of universal health care, and I have it here, and I very much appreciate it. So, like, my son has type 1 diabetes. So, I very much partake of not having to worry about paying those bills. So I already, I think, sit a little bit, in the, if we're looking at the states, a little bit on the just to the left anyway. But I mean, I started off pretty conservative, but I'm really open, like in the openness Big Five personality test. And I'm also very nervous about going in whole, putting all my eggs in one basket, going all in into one, I don't want to say ideology, but like one, I guess, like way of thinking, epistemology, I guess you could say. So when I got on Twitter, I was very much freedom of speech, like get rid of these intense restrictions. And I, was even writing articles for an online magazine that was a little bit more on the right, which was fine, and I was doing like these little hot takes of like, oh, this is like gender exists, even though I know there's this like thing that came out talking about transsexuals, saying that that's why there's a gray area. And I did like a little breakdown of it and, splicing in and like kind of analyzing, so I did kind of those little clickbaity hot take things. And I was very, very much concerned about everything being politically correct and all those things. But then on Twitter, I started seeing some people who were not just a little left, far left, but who were really reasonable, who didn't think that the other side was evil and were really nice. And so I was like, oh, I need to investigate this. So I decided to make sure to interview people who were a little bit more on the left or more left than the IDW folk, interspersed throughout my discussions. I have an interview coming out in the next couple of days with a guy who is like Biden all the way and like concerned that about the switchover is it January? Is that when the switchover?
Yeah.
Anyway. But like and I'm gonna have to find a Trump supporter actually because I need to even it out. But I just to be fair, because that's the kind of podcast I do. I don't want to just be like, well, but I kind of seek out the people who are anti-reactionary. Like I used to, which is what IDW space is. I would seek out just those because they're reacting to the left, the far left especially. So now those are the reactionaries, which is, I don't know. I'm not trying to be derogatory or anything. It just, I'm a Protestant, we protested. So I'm not nothing derogatory against people who react to things. Like I said, I literally identify.
No, I mean, that's one of my recent observations is my greatest tradition as a Protestant is my ability to wipe my hands of everything I don't like and walk away from it. So
yes, I know. It's like, aren't we just great like that? Anyway, but anyway, so yeah, nothing against the reactionary thing, but I've found people, not only people who are on like really closer on the Marxism side of things, people who are more or less centrist, but who are concerned about certain people in a certain space, like going too far with concerns about like to the point where they're not going against people on the far right enough, So I try to, so that's what I did. And I remember tweeting about this in the midst of, before I was able to procure a lovely person who was definitely far farther left than me. I remember being like, oh, I'm so worried that I am not correct that I'm not seeking out other sides enough and that I'm on the wrong side, and it bothers me, and I wasn't alone. A lot of people were, like, oh, I feel like that too. So once I started getting more people from around different spaces, it helped me to feel a little bit better, to be like, oh, I'm trying to glean the good parts of the different sides, like Jonathan Haidt.
Yeah.
So his work on the political spectrum, how we need both. We need conservatives and liberals, and if you get too extreme on either side, it's not good. So I kind of am like, okay, let's glean. I did an interview with, I did a letter exchange with a guy, one of the nice guys who gave me an interview before then about critical race theory on letter.wiki. So he and I actually won the Impossible Conversations. Like, it was a contest. And so we won for having the most impossible conversation because it was on critical race theory. And we had a lovely back and forth about it, actually. That was very on the up and up, and no bad words were given between us, because that I found out on my interview with this guy. So his name's Liam Bright, and he is a professor of philosophy of religion in, I believe it's at the London School of Business. Liam, if you're watching, I'm so sorry if I got it wrong. But anyway, he is like, he's not a critical race theorist, but I found out in my interview with him that he's fine with critical race theory, and he's studied some of it, and he is, so he told me, I'm on letter.wiki, write me something. So I'm like, oh, well, haha, okay. I'll ask you the most pressing thing on my mind, because I only had literally one side, the so-called squared side of things with James Lindsay, Helen Pluckrose, and Peter Boghossian. I only heard that, and I wanted to hear, and I really respected Liam, and I was like, okay, man, I want to hear what you have to say about it. So we had a number of back and forths, and then I interviewed him again on my podcast to sort of sum things up. That was great. He gave some really good points as to, the theory versus the practice, and you can't judge the theory by the practice. Of course, there's objections, I'm sure, but it just was helpful for me to see a different side. And again, I'm a centrist no matter what. I'm just like, oh, let's get along and we'll take the good things from both worlds. And it really helped me to see, okay, I don't know all the laws. Systematic racism, I think there's stuff left over, but I'm not going to say there is no systematic racism. Like, I'm not going to make that proclamation because I haven't read all the laws. So I don't feel qualified to say. So, whereas, earlier when in my podcasting career, in my YouTube channel career, I would have said that. And I think I probably did say that. So anyway, I just like to see different sides, and I don't like to say everyone's right or wrong. I just am like, okay, well, what are the perspectives we can present? I'm a good moderator.
How does that extend into your religious views then? Because have you always been Protestant, or?
Oh, we're gonna go down here. Okay.
Well, we're talking. So, you said we want to talk about meaning, and I'd like to see where. I'm not gonna. I don't want to force you too far, because.
It's good. It's long. No. It's just long. Okay. I've told people just in conversation about it before, so I'll try to. I'm a bad guest. I'm sorry. You asked me a question. That's a good question. And then I'm like, oh, are we going here? I'm terrible. I'm the worst. But the hosts are the worst.
I know I suck, don't I?
No. I don't mean hosts. I mean, I'm the worst. I'm like, when you're interviewing someone who does the thing, I'm the one who does the thing usually, and so now I'm like, oh no, I have to answer that. No one ever says to me, oh no, you just asked me that. Like, no one ever said that, so I'm the one saying it to you because I'm used to being the one in the questions wrong.
Oh man.
Now I'm like, anyway. So anywho.
I saw a short film recently where a guy goes to therapy, and the guy getting therapy suddenly turns it on his therapist and starts asking him questions. And that's kind of how I think your feel is like. It's like, how is your day, sir?
I know. So I think it's just because I know it's like we should have like, oh, that's another episode. No. So no, it's just long. So I'll try to do the short version. So when I I did not want to touch religion when I started my podcast slash YouTube channel. I don't like arguing about religion. I used to when I was younger, because I'm like, I know all the answers and I'm right. So that was, fools rush in, right? So I now that I'm wiser and I'm older now, to know that I don't know anything, and that all I know is that I know nothing. I think that's my pinned tweet.
Socrates, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't enjoy the arguing, especially with the hardcore evangelical atheists, because it's not fun for me, and I don't want to engage at a materialist level, because I don't think that's the way that religion should be talked about. And I don't want to be like, and I can't win that way. I don't mean it that way. I mean, nobody wins to me. Like, I mean, if they go away being like, I schooled her, but like, I don't think anybody wins in such discussions that aren't discussions. Actually, they're just arguments. So as to why people think I'm right, no, here's why my point is right, no, here's why my point is right. I don't enjoy that personally. I'm also agreeable, so I don't enjoy that. But I'm highly extroverted, so I like having discussions with people, and I enjoy people. So I'd had a few bad experiences on Twitter and on other platforms where I'm just like, oh no, I got into the religion thing and I just didn't like it. So I was like, okay, we'll just talk about IDW. Oh, the meaning crisis. Let's go at it from the outside in. And so I felt very for some reason, scientists, really, a lot of scientists and atheists followed me early on, and I think it just has to do with that freedom of speech space, and like a lot of the professors as well. It just happens to be the space I was in, and so I was getting a lot of this, that the arguments of unfalsifiable. If it's unfalsifiable, it's not valid, and those kinds of things. This is before philosophy Twitter, before I got acquainted with philosophy Twitter, even, because they're not like that. They're like, we can't know anything ever. So I apparently, I don't know, the Christian Twitter I've not seen. So
it's beautiful and terrifying at the same time.
Okay.
It's just a bunch of crypto fasts just debating whether or not men and women can be in the same space at the same time. So
Oh, okay. Oh, so fun. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good. Anyway,
exactly. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No. So I was just getting all this stuff, and I was just like, I just was feeling almost like I call it it's like I was being a little bit deconstructed, because I was questioning things about my faith, and I felt this is what I've after talking with people about this is the wording I use: the calcification over my eyes of materialist point of view, or this is how we know what's real, objective truth, that's that sort of thing, because that's what's getting thrown out at the social constructionists, at the postmodernists, is no, you can't say that gender is a social construction or is a social construct because objective truth of biological sex, so it's not about necessarily religious stuff. Some of it is, but it's stuff that's like, they're fighting, with the far left about. And so I'm kind of buying into that, because that's the side I'm on when I start off. But then it's like, but when I look at my faith, that doesn't really square objective truth and what we can see, and materialist sort of, is that the right word? Like, I'm saying materialist, it's like what we can touch and observe.
I'd say materialism, just in terms of
materialism.
Yeah, but you got the sentiment right.
Okay, yeah. So that materialism sort of objective truth mentality. And so it's sort of like, it kind of, I felt like it was like, I came to a space where I was viewing along coupled with Peterson's work, which is fine, like his stuff is fine. I'm not saying it took me away from my faith or anything, because it's brought a lot of people into faith, but I felt like I was looking at Christianity from the outside in. And so, humans evolved to need meaning and structures, storytelling structures to explain the world around them. And that's why we created myths and legends and our gods, whatever, and then whatever, an evolution of, or adaptation and whatever of our meaning-making systems and whatever. So I was like, okay. So if it's from the outside in, like, then how can it be true from the inside out? And again, I never said, I guess it can't be. I never abandoned my faith, but I don't know how to square this with what I'm hearing on this side. And so, and it really got difficult when one of my friends one of my atheist Twitter friends was like, I can't wait for you to become an atheist because you don't talk like a Christian. And I was like, oh dear. Okay.
That's a weird comment.
What do I do? Well, I kind of liked it because I think it's because I'm not preachy. I'm not like, I know all the answers, Jesus, So I think that was it. But I also it scared me to be like, do I sound like I'm becoming an atheist? Oh my goodness, And so I was afraid that, like, what if it's true? And so I wrote Paul Vanderklay because I saw him on, I have a little bit of a connection. Do you know Benjamin Boyce?
Yeah, I've seen him.
Yeah. So he actually helped me get my YouTube channel started. So I met him on Twitter, and so he, just gave me help with the technical, like gave me kind of tutorials and stuff for the technical side of things. So I saw Paul Vanderklay on Boyce's channel, and I was like, oh, this pastor gets it. Like, he gets what's going on in the cultural context. If I think that, because I'm not going to go to like any of my pastors, they won't get why I'm asking these things, but Vanderklay seemed to kind of like get it. So I wrote him a letter. I emailed him. He does not remember this, but I emailed him. I thought that's how he knew me, but he did not. That's not how he knew me. I think he knew. I don't actually know how he found out about me, because he seems to know me because he invited me over to the Bridges of Meaning podcast. And I think he saw my David Fuller interview. So I think that's how he found out who I was. Anyway, so Paul, I wrote Paul, and I'm like, hey, all the things I kind of just described to you, I wrote those down about why I'm concerned about. I'm like, narratives are so powerful. And how do I know that it's not just a narrative that we have? And then he wrote me back, and he wrote me a long-ish type email, but I remember the first paragraph was all I really needed. And he's like, yeah, narratives are very powerful. That is why for humanity's narrative, the word became flesh and dwelt among us. And I was like that's what I needed. And I've heard it. I've heard that phrase. I mean, every Christian has. But man, I was even in a space, like when I was on Twitter before I wrote him, I'm like, I don't like saying I'm a Christian. I'm just like follower of Jesus, or follower of the way, as the early Christians said. Like, I had that, I remember when I was talking with Esther, I interviewed her just before I interviewed Paul. And I remember I told her that, and she was like, oh yeah, I've heard some people refer to themselves that way. I'm just like, oh, you seem like you're kind of rolling your eyes at that. But anyway,
it's like yeah, I hate religion, but I love Jesus.
Yeah. Yes, preach. So anyway, so I very much just needed the. It is like I said, you had eyes to see and ears to hear. It was like the word became flesh and dwelt among us. It's like, no, the narrative, the story became real and human and dwelt amongst us. It participated in humanity, and by it I mean the Logos made flesh, aka Jesus, the Messiah. Anyway, so Jesus the Christ. So anyway, in the end, it didn't end it. I called it my dark night of the soul, the deconstruction. I didn't have the word for it. So like, oh, dark night of the soul. Apparently that's a thing in Christian history. It's like a space for Christians. And when we're just, you just feel unsure about everything. So that didn't end it, but it helped me to get on the right track again. And so that's when I started interviewing people who to just be like, where are you at in, like, what is the meaning crisis to you, and where is the answer? Like, what do you think is the answer? Is it I interviewed Paul like shortly after the letter I wrote him, and I interviewed other people. I interviewed Jonathan Pajot about like that, because that's where I found my way back, was symbolism. And because it was like, oh, I'm not looking at the material, I'm looking at what the symbols, what the physical symbols are pointing signposts towards, and that doesn't have to be material. Symbolism is very deep and very powerful, and it's real. And that's how Peterson talks about things being real. It's more than true, so that was, and I joined the Bridges and Meaning server that like a year ago, so a year and a month ago. So it was last November I joined it, and I got really, really involved come last February on and during COVID and stuff. So that helped me as well, to have a community of people who are, as Paul says, the estuary, not St. Paul, Paul Vanderklay.
The other one.
Well, you have to clarify. So I kind of think that we should just say St. Paul and then Paul. But anyway, so anyway, I think that was the short version. I know I took a bit of time, but I've taken longer. So.
No, that was good.
I think that's the direction that I also kind of, questioned my evangelical upbringing, to be like, oh, maybe some of this stuff isn't necessarily the way to Jesus. Maybe there's some things that we jettisoned as Protestants that aren't all bad. So
yeah, once you find yourself in the mega church with the rock music and the Starbucks in the lobby, you might start asking some questions as to how you got there from. Yeah. I mean, even just a few years ago, I was like, I just want to listen to hymns. Why can't I just listen to hymns? And then I found a church that had all the stuff I didn't like, but I liked the pastor, so I'm like, okay, I'll just show up just 20 minutes late on purpose so I can get to the part I like.
You're like, I still jettison the first 20 minutes, but
I ain't getting anything out of that anyway. It's empty calories.
Yeah. So hey, how did you come to find like the Discord group, like the Bridges and Meaning and stuff? I don't even know. Are you on Bridges and Meaning?
I am technically. I've jumped in like 2 or 3 discussions, but I don't, my phone doesn't send me updates, so I don't keep up with the chat very much. I've wanted to try the book club, but when I jumped in, they were halfway through Paradise Lost, and I just read it like a month before, so I'm like, I don't have the ability to go back and read this book like again right now. So
well, I run the other book club, like where I run the right now we're doing the Magician's Nephew.
I saw that.
We're gonna do the line in the wardrobe after. So if you're interested, you can.
How far are you into the first book?
So in the Magician's Nephew, I think will only be one more. I think maybe two. Yeah, 2 more, and then we'll the remainder of December we'll just finish up with whatever.
I'm sure that they're short books, right? It's been a while since I've read them.
They're so short.
Yeah.
We just wanted something like easy. Oh my goodness, let me tell you. Okay, so I do have a story about this.
Where's my copy of the City of God? You need to do that.
What?
Have you seen?
Oh God, no. Let me explain. Talking about thick books, I was like, oh no, like you froze for a second. I'm like, oh no, are we? Okay, so here's the thing. I was like, I've been suggesting The Magician's Nephew for a while because I really wanted to read it again because it's been since I was a child. At the end of the last book, the last one was Till We Have Faces. And then everyone's like, Andrea, we'll just do The Magician's Nephew. Like, you don't have to put it to a vote every time. But I'm like, but guys, democracy. And so I put it to a vote.
A nice brisk read, only 800 pages.
Only 800. Oh my goodness. I'm getting to this. Like, I put it out to not just the writer's server. I put it out to Bridges of Meaning, and I was like, hey, everyone, come to the writer's server and put forth your concept or your book of what you'd like to read. And I put my Magician's Nephew, which I knew most of the Bridges of Meaning like writing group would be like happy to vote for because they said they were happy to read it. But then someone was like, The Brothers Karamazov by Theodore Dostoevsky, which is like a mere 800 pages. And then like 20 people voted for it. And only 10 voted for mine. And then I'm like, what the F? Who are you voting for this, first of all? Second of all, you should have voted for mine. Anyway, so then I'm like, okay, well, I'm like, we'll see. So the first meeting happens. None of the Brothers Karamazov people show up. So F you guys. Not none, and not really F them, sorry. But you know, none of them, barely any of them show up. So it's just a whim. Like they're just voting on like, oh, look, we like Dostoevsky. So I was like, okay. So what we decided was, okay, whoever's here, we decide what we're doing. So we're going to. So that's where let's do the Magician's Nephew now. It's easy before the holidays, and it's so short. We can probably get the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in too, which it feels kind of Christmassy anyway. Always winter, but never Christmas. Anyway, but don't worry, for friends, Father Christmas shows up. Sorry, spoiler alert.
For a 70-year-old book and a 15-year-old movie.
You just have to. Anyway, I'm just respecting the audience, even though I didn't do the spoiler alert until after. Anyway, so we decided to do the Brothers Karamazov come January.
Oh no.
So actually I'm like, okay, we'll see. So yeah, that's my little story about. And I actually said, we're not doing this democratic decision making anymore, guys. You have to come to the first meeting in between books if you want to vote. We'll vote, and you have to come with your book. You have to come with your book in mind. We'll do a silent, we'll put it in the chat. Okay, list your books, and then people put thumbs up on whichever one, and the two with the most thumbs up, we'll put those up against each other, and that's how we'll do it. So we'll still do it democratically, but we'll do it the way the old city-states did, where each one person represents themselves in person at the Senate type meeting or whatever. So the polity meeting.
I was gonna say you could just go full fasci and just take it over. This is my group now.
I don't want to be an oligarch.
You can be the queen.
I know. I actually did. I said I was the heir apparent to the writer's server, and I put the crown in. But I took the crown away because I'm like, after a few weeks, I'm like, okay, now I'm just bragging. So anyway, so that's that. I think I did it. I think I did the two origin story things. The thing about the sort of cultural side of how my podcast got started, and then the religious journey. I want to do stuff on my own. I want to do just a monologue of explaining my religious journey, because I have I have childhood and difficult things background that would be probably good to stick in.
Sure.
But it's the gist of it is what I gave you. So anyway.
And to answer your question, I will eventually do more stuff on the Bridges of Meaning server. I just have to not be lazy and not actually do it. So.
Well, are there any other Discord groups that you're more frequent or are they not really your thing?
I was in the Beauty and the Beta group for a while, but that just turned into 5 very angry people. Beauty and the Beta, the podcast. Matt Christensen.
Oh, I've not heard of it.
Oh, look at Matt Christensen's YouTube channel. He has his own, I've
heard of him.
He and Blonde in the Belly of the Beast host a podcast together.
I feel like I've heard of them. Okay, yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I was part of their Discord server, but their main chat was just awful. So I did not want to jump in ever. And so eventually I just left the group because I'm like, this group's gonna get banned eventually because I know the crap they're talking about. So I just jettisoned that off my phone, and now I have British a meeting, and I have maybe one other That's about it at this
What's
point.
the other one?
I think it's if it's from a YouTube, it's a YouTuber called Mitch, his YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
It's been a while since you jumped in that one.
Well, Tyler, what's the social media of choice for you?
Usually Twitter, just because it lets me throw lots of nonsense into the void.
Okay. Oh yeah. That's my main thing, but I'm trying to be a little bit less. Actually, no, I feel like the Discord group has become a little bit more main for me because we do more chats, like more, I'm not as up on the up and up with the writing stuff, but when it's verbal, I enjoy that. So,
yeah,
I like to tell stories, so, which is really funny because I ask the questions on my channel, my YouTube channel, but I'm very like, hey, let's talk about things I want to talk about. And I'll, but if I'm in a space where I am not the one asking the questions, I'll be like, oh, I'll give you the things. I'll tell you the things, But when I'm in my space where I'm interviewing someone, I only interview someone if I'm like, I need to pull information from you for my curiosity. So that works out well. But I can't interview someone unless I'm actually curious about something that they have to offer.
Oh, that's the catch-22.
It works well. Yeah, I have to be curious about the thing. So that's why, there's certain angles. And that's why I never expect people to have me on theirs, because I'm like, oh, if you don't have an angle with me, like, that's fine. That's why I was like, dude, you don't have to have me on. Like, you really don't. If you don't have an angle.
I just like fine to talk to people because people are interesting. And
oh, yes, that is. Yeah, that's true. But like I said, I guess that's my catch 22. I don't know if it's catch 22, though. It's a catch. But the catch 22 is almost a contradiction. Have you heard where that came from?
The catch 22 from the book.
Yeah. The whole, like, if you're crazy enough to go fly this plane in war,
they'll let you fly it. But if you say you're crazy, that you're too crazy to do it.
You're too crazy, but you shouldn't be going because you're too mentally unstable that you actually agreed to do it. Anyway.
Exactly.
Man, I'm kind of disappointed you knew that. I wanted to. I just tweeted this. I'm like, I'm the random facts person in every group, and if a facts person emerges, I'm like, this is my group.
Well, my curse in life is I'm rapidly turning into the most literate person I know. So I'm.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah, I'm rapidly going to become that guy that just knows every book offhand.
Okay. Oh, so yeah. So you'll be the one who I'm like, okay, get out of here. I'm the one who knows the random.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway. Okay,
so, in terms of you said going into this, you kind of wanted to talk about the topic of how to live in the world. What have you kind of picked up from having the guests on your show?
Oh, that's.
I mean, I know that's a big question, but I kind of want to start somewhere because there's a lot of ways you can kind of prod at the question of how do you live in the world.
So the more I speak with people, I do gain some knowledge. Like I do gain, that's the thing I was wondering. Like I remember with Jonathan Peugeot, I was trying to understand the feminine better, and it's the feminine's role in storytelling and symbolism. And that question was answered, I remember, quite well. But in general, for most things, I feel in the end, especially when I speak with philosophers, I feel more confused and unsure of things than I did before. But I guess that's not a bad thing. I've talked about this with people. They're like, no, that's not bad. You're just learning how big and how nuanced, how there's so many shades of gray, and that you can't reduce things to a simple catchphrase like Black Lives Matter, or what's another one, like Make America Great Again, or what, like you can't filter it down or whittle it down to be one-dimensional, because you lose so many of the facets. So I guess what I've learned is that the world is a very complex place, and that I understand that there are people who do big things in the world, and I don't want to disparage that. But I think that it really, I also am a big fan of Stoicism, and Stoicism really influenced early Christianity as well. So there's a lot of Stoic Christian, especially early Christian principles that kind of overlap. It really is, you can only control yourself. You can't control other people. Again, I really want to stress that I'm not saying don't go out and try to change the world if you have a platform or if you have a space so you can do that. But for me personally, I get bogged down and overwhelmed at the thought of all the big problems. So the thing that I can do, another this is I think a Buddhist saying or something, is tend to the garden you can touch. So you do the things like, oh, because it's so lame, be the change you want to see in the world, like that's the Gandhi thing. But like being kind on Twitter was actually my motivation, one of my motivations for joining Twitter, that and promoting my YouTube channel. But I was like, I'm gonna show that you don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to, like, I'm gonna see a person on the other side of that screen. And I've actually never stopped that. Like I want to be kind to people. I don't want to let people pull me down to be rude. And I found ways of like, I don't wade into those kind of topics anyway, where I have to be the one who's above board. But I do really feel like it is a thing of doing what you can. And this is very, I know this is like, oh, Jordan Peterson, like, take responsibility for your things, be what you want to see others be doing, like, and then that's like, take the plank out of your own eye rather than grabbing for the splinter in your brother's, So that's when I whittle it down to how should you individually, how should I individually be in the world? That's what I do. And there's a lot of thought things, like there's a lot of thought life that I've been delving into on Bridges of Meaning, learning about the early church fathers. But it really is that's my another question. That's kind of what that's probably another topic I should be exploring on my YouTube channel. I've been like really looking into these, early Christian things. And again, that's my degree. I have a degree in Christian studies with that minor in history that you described in the intro. So thank you for that. So I studied these things. I studied these guys, but it was more of surveys of them. So I want to kind of do a little bit more in depth some of these guys. And gals. There are a few church mothers, but not many, but a few. And how do I move that into practice? The things I'm learning about the early church and the early church fathers and Christian history. Like, how do I make this practical and usable in the world? So that's something that I'm still trying to answer. So all that to say, I'm just trying to answer it still. So
would you say your efforts have been more of a journey for you, or more of just a journey to kind of put these voices out there? What is it? What do you think your goal is in terms of things?
Here's the answer that I give for a lot of things. Rather than either or, I think it's both and.
Sure.
Like I mean, the people I choose to put on who I pursue, I usually am like, okay, what is I've heard it framed like this. I remember Benjamin Boyce like framed it this way to me, and it kind of just stuck with me. It's like, you're the conduit to get a voice heard. So I do look at myself as wanting to have people's ideas heard to the world. And I know I'm not a really big YouTube channel, but I act as if it is something that is, even though it's not. I think I act like, okay, this is, I think, a discussion worth having. I think that discussions are important now, especially nowadays, and I think that these people should be heard. These discussions should be heard, and especially because of the fact that I'm really very curious and not trying to get. No, I'm not trying to push an agenda the best I can. So I do see it as like, I want these people to be heard, but I also, it's super selfish. I want to know these things. So it's, even though I in theory think of it as like, I want to give of myself to be like a mirror, a conduit for these people to out into the world. I seek people out that I'm like, I want to know this. I've been thinking this. I want to know this thing. So yeah, so that's it's just both ends.
I had an immediate follow-up to that, but my mind kind of blanked at the last second there.
No, I went on. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's 9:30 here. My brain does that.
What do you do? What do you think of it as for you?
For how to live in the world? Or
No. About you being the conduit for the people versus you wanting to learn. Like, what do you look at it in those terms, or do you have a different way of looking at it?
For a lot of the time, I'm talking to people because they're people I think that are interesting personally, and I want to just kind of interpersonally talk to them, but they're also people I want other people to know more. So I tried. So in bringing that there, I thought, okay, I'm put one more podcast out there so that if someone wants to know, they can find it and find out about this person. And
cool.
And just in the thought that creating more of something will bring it more attention. I mean, all things beget themselves. So if you put one more thing in the world, you're going to create more of it. So find more interesting people that don't have a lot of attention, bring more interesting people on, make more friends, just kind of develop and try to push myself in the conversations too. I mean, there have been a couple conversations on here that haven't gone as far as I've wanted them to. I mean, I interviewed Ron Dart when his book came out over the summer, and he is in just such a different intellectual weight class to me that I just could not keep up with him.
So I'm not familiar with him. What's
he edited the book Esther wrote one of the chapters in over the summer, Myth and Meaning, in Jordan Peterson.
Oh yeah, okay.
He was the primary editor on that book, and I interviewed him for one of the sites I write for. And he's a college professor, so obviously he talks at he talks at a very high level. And I was just like, I was just kind of dragging on like a guy holding on to like Indiana Jones holding on to the car as it's dragging on. But it was
I have very much felt like that as well.
So the stuff he said was brilliant. I just couldn't keep up with it at the time. I was just like, okay, good answer. Moving on.
Yeah, no. But you almost had to like, can I just rewatch so I can really get it, and then
let me rewind.
Yeah. I know that's what happened when I went to see Peterson back when he was doing his book tours. I went and saw him I saw him 2 times though, and I remember being like, I wish I could like do a quick double tap, like a 15 seconds. 30 seconds back, like you do when you're watching him on YouTube. I just want, like, can you repeat that? I just didn't get. Oh, I can't. You're live. I can't believe how much I rely on like going back and like listening again to like really process it. Yeah.
Well, that's what.
I've gotten better. You can get better as you go. So.
Well, the mind's a muscle. It takes time, and that's you don't learn that all at once.
Well, I have to say you're really, really good at giving people the space to speak. I've been working on it, but I very much interrupt people when I'm like, but wait, what about this? But what about this? So you're a good job with the pauses.
The problem is the rebound, is making sure you have the right question to bounce off of, because occasionally I get too rigid on the question list and I just jump on to the next thing and the transition isn't smooth or something like that. But
yeah, well, you do. You can edit out the transition if you want.
Well, it's not even like
oh, there was a long pause. I'll just cut that out.
It's like the commercial scenes in RoboCop where it's like the president died in a horrible accident. Now on to this children's commercial. Just an abrupt subject change.
You just like put in a children's commercial at this point in time. Okay, well I'll let you do the next question.
Well, the last couple things I was going to talk about was just the problem of modernity and how you think religion plays into all this. So because that was something you were talking about wanting to discuss a little bit. But yeah, obviously
I don't remember where I was going with
let me just phrase it like this: we're both Christians, so obviously we both have a positive relationship to that, and that's not going to be something either one of us inherently question. But a lot of the people that surround you are atheists and not interested in religion. How would you explain to someone why you think faith is the way forward to resolving the meaning crisis?
This is actually fantastic because I have an answer only because I listened to one of the many, I don't even know which one, of the videos of Paul Van Clay's that I was like, oh, that's a good thing. That's a good point. I'm keeping that in the arsenal for when someone asks me a question such as you just asked. So I think it's not coming from the perspective of, and I think that God is real, and that's why. I mean, obviously I do. I think that He's real in all the senses of the word real. But that's not the answer I would give to that I think is the convincing answer, because people are would just be like, well, I agree or disagree, But the where a discussion could come from is I heard Paul mention how when Jesus entered the story. No. I made that up in my head after he described this. He said something about participating in the story, participating in the narrative. So Jesus participated in the narrative when he became flesh and dwelt among us, right? He participated in it. He lived it. And so people don't do super well without meta narratives, without something to unite them. And oh my gosh, are you looking on your phone?
I got a reply. I had her answer it real quick. It's my podcast.
And I am calling you. It is your podcast.
Call me on Discord and just be like, what are you doing?
I'm like, man. Well, I didn't check out your YouTube channel, so.
I'm horribly unprofessional.
We both had things. But I'm like, I'm not gonna call you out on it. Like, I'm not gonna say something that I see you recording and checking your phone. Anyway.
I feel so seen now. It's violated even.
Okay, I know, but kids, if you want to start a podcast or YouTube channel, and you're interviewing someone, don't check your notifications on your phone. Put it away. Shows them that you respect them and that your attention is on them. Anywho, that was a mom moment. That was a little mom moment.
I felt that in my soul.
Oh, good. I looked straight at the camera. For the people who have made it this far. Anyway, who got to have a little Andrea the mom for a moment. Anyways, so back to my amazing answer. So I think that people inherently want to participate in the story. I think that they want to participate in the narrative. And so when you have a faith or a religion, or you could say spirituality, but that sounds all wooey. But I think that the faith and religion and spirituality are all intertwined. When you believe in something greater than yourself, this is why scientism has come to be this almost faith religion thing. Of you have faith in science. You want to believe in something greater than yourself. And the optimal word is believe. You want to believe. We're believing creatures. We want to believe in something. So that said, I think that people want to participate in the story. But they don't know what to participate in. A lot of people. They don't want a religion. They only see the bad parts of it. They don't want to. They're like, oh, atheist technically just means non-theist. So what is that? What are you believing in? They see the sort of woke religion. They see the far left in the intensity of the chanting and do you remember the dancing on those like sit-ins. I think it had to do with, I think that it was for like they blocked traffic in a lot, like it was before COVID. I think it was environmental stuff. Oh, maybe it was Greta, what's her name? Turnberg.
Extinction Rebellion?
Yeah, she ushered in a lot of like protesting and like sit-ins blocking traffic because of emissions or something. And I remember seeing people like dancing and being kind of crazy. I literally saw footage on Twitter of it's Mother Nature embodied as some chick, I'm calling it some chick, literally squirting breast milk and the masses opening their mouths to receive nature's good gifts, to be nourished by the mother. Like, so this is like the argument. This is so Jungian. It's not even funny, right? So this is so there, you know, people who are in that, I guess you could say, like the anti-left, the intellectual dark web sort of meaning-seeking space. They see that and they're like, hey, it's not the creationists and the fundamental Christians we have to worry about, the fundamentalist Christians we have to worry about. It's these guys. And so they're concerned, but they're like, but we don't want to say that we're into faith or anything. We're not into that, that's for sure. What do we have? And I think that this happened a little bit with Pajot when he spoke with Sargon of Akkad. You know, it's like he doesn't want religion, but Sargon's like, but I see all the problems and we need something, but I don't want religion, but I'm not as anti-religion as I used to be. That's it. That's what it is. And so to me, I'm like, well, I have my answer. I have my aim. I have my goal. I participate in the story. I very much feel like I participate in the story because I have an active relationship with Christ, with the Father, in different ways, looking into not just the evangelical, like a relationship with God, relationship with Jesus, like not in the scripted way, but in the, I'm looking into the old school, like pre-Protestant, like there is a lot there, you know. I'm looking into like, what did they believe? What do I believe in that? I don't want to go on script. I want to be, I'm off script. So I'm happy to be like, oh, maybe I should deconstruct that part of my faith. Maybe that was a little bit too hard lines, too calcified, whatever, you know? So but I didn't throw it all out. You know, I still have it. I'm more open-handed with it. But I have it. I have something. I think people need something. And some people, they say their marriage is their meaning. That's, you know, like more than truth even. So when I interviewed James Lindsay, he said that. It's like, because sometimes you just gotta put in the marriage about the truth, you know? So I think that people will find something because we have to. Otherwise, we're left with, do we continue living? As Albert Camus said, something about suicide being the only option. I don't know. I just found that out and I was like, wow, that's a way to look at the world. Anyway, I also thought it was pronounced Camus. When I found out it was Camus, I was like, what? But you know what? Obviously, I read it. I was reading it, and I didn't hear it said. I only read it. So that's how you know people are not well read, because I was only on Twitter. I was reading it, but still.
I get all my Camus off Twitter quotes.
No, legit. People love Camus a lot. Anyway.
I read The Stranger in high school, but that's all I've read of his, so.
I read nothing of his. I watched YouTube videos about him when I found out I was pronouncing his name wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, one of my recent thoughts on thinking a lot about religion is kind of just trying to figure out what the motivation behind most of the thoughts is when it comes to people assuming what their religious preferences are. Because, I mean, when you look at all these different people, they're all kind of moving in the same direction of they have a problem, there's a lack of meaning in their life, and they're trying to figure it out, and they're putting something in the hole, but they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And you need to... Where was I going with that thought? I mean, darn it, I lost my train of thought again.
Okay. Where are people going who don't have that meaning to fill that God-shaped hole? You didn't say God-shaped hole, but like the hole that you need to fill with something. What were you thinking about people who don't have a faith or something?
Well, the thought behind the thought. When it comes to most religious people or atheists, the number one question I'm interested in before I kind of want to get debates, I think that needs to be asked before you debate someone is, why do you believe the thing you believe or disbelieve the thing you believe, and why do you believe it so intensely? Because I think that cuts to the core of what it is that's going on within the person more than anything else. I mean,
but you know what though? So many. Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
I mean, it's just because it's kind of an extension of Jonathan Haidt's idea of the man riding the elephant. The idea that we're all a little bit of free will on top of a big body of emotion, and for the most part, we're getting guided around by our wants and desires and unconscious thoughts unintentionally. I mean, it's not like we don't have any amount of free will. We do, but we do have a lot of unconscious software. It's not that we can't come to faith through reason or that we can't figure this out rationally, because obviously we need to. But I think part of the reason why people get so caught up in the weeds of the religious debates is, especially like the militant atheists or the militant fundamentalists, is just the fact that they find a narrative that they can sit on, and they decide that they self-actualize around it, and then they just can't figure out a way to move without fundamentally breaking something in their being. And I think so much of why so many of those debates just don't go anywhere is because at the end of the day, the person wants that thing to be true. Mm-hmm. And it becomes...
But we do too, right?
Well, yeah.
We all do it. It's just more... It just depends on which... and like how open-handedly you're holding it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that want is definitely part of the equation too. I think, obviously that's part of... either Aquinas' or Lewis's idea of the argument from desire, the idea that if there's this universal want in the human species for something, then that means that there's a corresponding need that can fulfill it, and that's one of the philosophical arguments for why God exists. But I mean, and when it comes to how we look at the religious debates, I think it's worth just kind of considering just how much, especially the militant people, just do not like. It's a lot of people just aren't worth fighting just because they've decided God doesn't exist. I've built my entire identity around this thing, and not can change it. And they built their entire meaning structure around this entire notion, and it's built their ego and their identity around it. So it's very hard to break them on it. And this is a bit tangential to the point we were talking about, of the ultimate point of how to find meaning through Christ. But
well, what do you about how to be in the world? That was kind of the first question of this. What do you think?
I mean, as a millennial man, I can tell you for a fact I have no idea. So it is one of those.
Not just, I like that you're like, oh, as a millennial man, like what? Can't you just have no idea? Like, does it have to be those qualifiers? Like,
those qualifiers, I mean everything.
Okay. Why? What's significant about being millennial and a man then?
The millennial part is really the part that sells it. It's just being part. We're the lost generation. So there's a reason.
Why are we lost? Why?
Because we were all promised everything in the world when we grew up, and then when we got to the world, we realized the economy didn't exist anymore. So that's why we're all mad.
We're all mad.
Yeah, pretty much. It's very adolescent, but I don't know. There's a lot of serious problems in the water, and there's a reason why Jordan Peterson came up in this particular moment. Is because there's a lot of young people that just aren't self-actualizing, and there's a lot of young people that are just they get stuck in the stage right after you get out of college, but before you get into adulthood, and they just can't break out of that stage, and they can't leave the nest. And I sympathize with I know a lot of guys my age that are at that place, and you just cannot.
How old are you?
26.
Oh, you're just a baby.
I'm a wee lad. I can't help it.
Okay, well, I know I know it's rude to ask a lady her age, but I don't mind. I always broadcast my age because I'm like, yeah, that's right. I'm 34. I like to think I look younger than I actually am.
I wouldn't have guessed that, actually. So
wait. What do you mean by that?
I would have guessed younger.
Yes. Okay, because I do have 3 children, so I mean, I've got to be definitely at least over 30.
I don't know. I know a Mormon girl my age that's almost there, so.
Okay. I'm not a Mormon girl, but I did get married when I was younger. But yeah, no, because you're a younger millennial. You're right on the cusp, I think. You're a couple years, and then it was the Gen Z comes after you. So anyways, I interrupted you. As a millennial man, about the answering the question of the how to be. That was it. You have no idea.
Well, I have ideas. They haven't worked they haven't worked off paper yet. So that's.
Okay. Well, what is it on paper?
Well, I mean, there's obviously the end goal is 2-car garage, family, kids, full-time job.
Okay.
Being a responsible human being, but it's.
So it's not like a moral or a sort of you're meaning like literally your life plan style how to be in the world.
In a sense, I mean obviously the moral aspect plays a huge part into that, because that fosters your ethics and your day-to-day work life and how you wake up and take care of yourself and hold yourself up. I mean, that's the whole point of Jordan Peterson's book. It's that day-to-day process really does make the difference, and I'd say for the most part I kind of keep that up pretty well. I mean, I keep habits pretty well, but obviously it's COVID time, and the economy doesn't exist anymore, so it's kind of hard to have a job right now.
Well, it's funny. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because a friend of mine just asked me the other day, what's after for me, like, with regards to life plan. So you have I want to have this, and the typical like checklist goals. Well, and so I got married when I was 23, had my youngest when I was 26, and then I had 2 more. Was done having kids by 30. And he's like, oh, well, what's next? And I'm just like, but I hit all of the trad wife things, And I was like, oh wow, yeah, it's. I mean, okay, I actually do have an answer. Like my dream someday is to become like a Christian history professor, or maybe theology professor. We'll see. So that's my dream, because I obviously enjoy talking about things that I like, which happens to be this. But I mean, I had to really remember, like, oh yeah, you liked that, Andrea, remember, but it's sort of one of those things where it's like, oh, when you are raised in a particular tradition, the evangelicalism, like, I'm done. I found the man. I had the kids. Did the things.
Finish line.
I know, but that's. I have my whole life continuing, so that's why I have a lot of thought life stuff going on, but that's why I want to put it into practice. And I'm sorting it out.
I could definitely see that. I get that. Well, time is a hard thing to manage.
Well, this is helping. Like that, I do think that my podcast and the discussions, I do think it's helping, because it's helping me sort out my thoughts and work through them and be like, okay, well, what's next? Okay, well, that one's kind of semi-finished-ish. Because they're never fully finished. But, okay, let's move on to the next thought and mull over that. So yeah. Dude, we've been at this like.
Yeah.
We can end soon.
Yeah, I don't know how tired I look, but it's 10 o'clock here, so I kind of need to wrap up on this end. But
for sure, I'm happy to. Yeah. I feel like I've gone on. I hope that I didn't go on too much because I'm like, oh.
No, it was fine. It was great.
I'm usually asking the questions. Yeah. Okay.
No, my fear is the person doesn't go on long enough, and then I have to fix the problem and go on myself. Oh gosh, this is. This is not a problem. The other side is the problem.
Did I do good? Did I fill in the proper amount of blank space?
There's the not enough things to talk about, and then there's an infinite amount of space on the other end. I don't mind the other problem.
Yeah, good. Okay, so we're okay. I'm glad. I think we're good then.
All right. Yeah. You have any final thoughts then, or do you want to plug your stuff?
Always, I gotta always plug myself. Okay, so Andrea with the bangs. Just Google it. I think I'll come up. No.
Bing it. Use Bing.
I'll send you my what?
Use Bing. Everything Bing isn't. The algorithms on Bing are better.
I didn't know that. I'll actually try.
It isn't gummed up, so it doesn't send you to socialist newsletters every time you look something up.
Okay. Oh, that's not been a problem for me. It's been a problem for you, though, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah.
That didn't sound random.
Google is awful.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not a big fan of them as a corporation. Anyway, okay, plugging my stuff. Wow. Okay, we're going on tangents just from me trying to plug my stuff. Okay, so Andrea with the Bangs. So YouTube /C/Andrea with the Bangs. And Twitter, I'm at Andrea Lynn Lewis. My full name, which is probably not a smart idea, but whatever. So that's my handle. I'll give you my information. I'll put, if you want to put in the description.
Sure.
And okay, but here's my most recent thing that has very little, if not anything to do with what we're discussing, or the culture wars or the meaning crisis or anything like that. I have started an Instagram retro vintage fashion Instagram. Because I just wanted to have a place to put pictures where I dress up old-timey, because I do it anyway. And I take pictures, and I put them on Twitter, but that's not the place for them. They get lost. They get lost in the newsfeed forever. So I'm like, I do this anyway. I think I'm going to do this, and it's actually it's a fear. I'm in very male spaces online. So it's an actual female space for me to be yay, I'm feminine and a girl, and I'm not just surrounded by dudes. So, which is fine. I love the dudes, but it's nice to have the ladies around as well. Sisterhood. Anyway, so I'm gonna my name is @vintage_bangs. @vintage bangs. So I'm gonna give you that in case anyone is interested in looking into that. I'm sure of many new followers once this comes out, specifically on my Vintage Bangs account. So we'll see how it goes.
Sure. All right. Thank you so much for coming on. This was fun.
For sure. Thanks, Tyler. I appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You too.
The AntiSocial Network is a Groupthink Productions podcast. Editing, producing, and hosting are by Tyler Hummel, artwork by Crystal Calley, and original music was composed by Melissa Lafira and the late Dan Smolla. Like, subscribe, and please let us know what you think about the show in the comments below if you'd like to see anyone interesting be a guest on the show. Thank you for listening.